Do we say good morning even though it's afternoon? Because this, this will be show number 6.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
What have you got in your hot little hands there?
Oh, this is the cauldron for... Can we turn the screen around, babe, so that we can see, watch ourselves on the YouTube recording camera?
How's that?
Yes.
All
This
right.
is the cauldron Bible, full of ancient wisdom. And even though I have uploaded quite a few of the writings, it was must have been almost 2 years ago, to the Facebook page, and a lot of you copied them and have saved the record of them. I'm going to read, because today we are so lacking in the world real men and real women. So let's start with the real man.
Firstly, the Cauldron Bible come about from the times that I was in Glastonbury. There was 60 universities from the age of 13 to 30. Travelled back and forwards with Joseph of Arimathea, who was the uncle of Mary and one of the richest men in the Middle East at the time. And he would take tin and copper from the mines of England and primarily from Cornwall. If you go to Cornwall today and you go and talk to people there, there's no doubt in the world that Joseph of Arimathea was very well known to be the Tin Man, and there are songs written about him as Joseph of Arimathea was a Tin Man. It's one of the song titles. And placing the royal family that by that time had come over from Ireland, settled in Cornwall, and that is where Anna, the mother of Mary, was from, and the family of her husband was from Ireland. And if you went to Ireland, it's quite well known. It's not something that you would even think anyone in the world wouldn't know. But the churches, as they be, won't even talk about it. They want to go along with the Old Testament idea of the Torah, which is linked back to the false Jews and total confusion in the churches overall. So unless they're talking about me being back and what we're going to talk about now, the Cauldron Bible, which was protected up until the time of Henry VIII, when he sent his troops to Glastonbury, when they got hold of the priests there.
The last abbot.
The last abbot. These were Benedictine, were the coincidence, if you like, of Pope Benedict. And this stretches back into history in King William line of Scotland to his grandmother, who was Margaret, the Queen of England, and she married Malcolm III of Scotland, and their grandson was, of course, King William line of Scotland, and he inherited the silver mines, which enabled him to build with that currency that he made, that he produced, what is known as sterling silver. And what we have then is the mark of the silver being in the Bible, whereas you have to be refined 7 times like silver refined in the furnace. But what you do there is you take your silver and you heat it up, and all the dross comes to the surface, and you do it 7 times over to get pure silver, which becomes 99.99% fine, is what they call it. That's as fine as you can get. So that is reincarnation. So in the end time, when Yahweh himself comes back, again born into the most royal woman by the Holy Ghost, and that was Daphne Golightly. her husband Reginald Marshall, also dates ancestrally back to the daughters of King William the Lion of Scotland, who married into the Baron Marshall. In those days the word was not pronounced Marshall, it's Mareschal. And these become the Earls of Pembroke. And William Marshall is a name that's passed down. They all had large families, and therefore this is the Marshall family in England, where it all came from. So the Marshalls come over to England during the invasion by in 1066 of William the Conqueror, linking up with the what today is known as France, and they came across and conquered England, and eventually, of course, the throne fell into the hands of the Satanists through the Freemasons, etc., and a constitutional monarchy which put whoever they wanted on the throne. That's why the people that's on the throne today is the likes of Elizabeth, whose son is Charles, and he delights in talking about he is a descendant of Vlad the Impaler, to give you some idea. So we're going to read about the Colburn Bible, which is basically the record of what was said by myself to the people in the area of Glastonbury, which managed to survive even though Henry VIII tried to stamp it out.
Yes, just as I'll read about, it was Richard Whiting, the last abbot of Glastonbury. Of course, we were there last year on today's the 1st of June. Okay, so it was yesterday, the anniversary, the 31st of May, that we were there the first time. And then we were back there. It is the 31st today, is it?
Yeah. All right. So it's today.
All right, so today is the anniversary. But it was a Friday that we were there the first time. But it was the 31st of May. And then we went back there the following Monday.
So just for the listening audience, it's pre-recorded, so you won't hear this for another 3 days.
Yes.
So probably around the 3rd of June you're going to hear it, which is an important date as well, because that's when Cook had sailed out to Tahiti to observe the transition of Venus. And the transition of Venus, they set their astronomy telescopes up. They had mathematicians and astronomers with him. And he even had a man called John Green, who was the head of the observatory at Greenwich. And he had with him what is called a Harrison clock, which was invented by a relative of mine. And it was able to give the precise positions of longitude, which is very difficult to do because they had to know the precise time between the star directly overhead at a certain moment to give you midnight on board a ship, and then know where you are longitude-wise, so how many minutes you are away from Greenwich. That's how the longitude clock was quite a wonderful invention. However, the mountain they set up on was the highest mountain in Tahiti, and it's 7,353 feet, and that is the area of the Shroud of Turin. And while he was there preparing for this, he arrived 666 days after Captain Wallis, who had discovered it and named it George III Island. They had sailed there with the Harrison clock on Wallis's SS Dolphin was the name of the boat. And he sailed up the coast of Chile, 5,000 miles from the South Pole, and then sailed westward 5,000 miles, and not quite 5,000 miles he ran into the islands, and this is what is known as Tahiti today. So the 5,000 number is the 50th layer of masonry of the Great Pyramid, because they measure the pyramid in the same way as I do, and knew that the 50th layer would have to be something to do with being able to find a particular spot on Earth which is in the middle of the ocean, and very remote indeed. After Wallis had found it, he then sailed on to Easter Island, which was discovered on April the 5th in 1722. So April the 5th was Easter Sunday, and he called it Easter Island for that reason. Now, Easter doesn't always fall on the same day. If you go through your calendar, you'll find that it falls each year a little bit different. But occasionally it'll fall on the same dates as Easter Sunday. So you could then work out distances in time, which I've done all this kind of thing, and it's too complicated to get into now. But I would plot the stars above, measure the distances to different planets, and they all confirmed myself. And the Capricorn, which is the constellation representing my birth date, January, is the same shape as Easter Island. Now, on Easter Island, archaeologists who have been there, they try to reassemble everything and put everything back in place when it's supposed to represent Armageddon. And all the heads of statues are scattered all over the place and pointing in different directions, running in terror away from the main mountain, where two statues of enormous size were coming out the side of the mountain, and they're actually on a 26.18 degrees, which is the same as the descending passage of the Great Pyramid. So everything is based on the altar to the Lord, which has got all the numbers in it, shows you where I was going to be born precisely, and spread throughout the world. These numbers keep repeating itself. So what they found there was 888 statues of these enormous things, that some of the heads are sticking out the ground, have bodies 30 feet deep in the ground and weigh 50 tons or more. And the local islanders say that the huge white men came from the east out of the sky, and they manoeuvred statues as they was manufacturing off the side of a volcano. Volcano tried 6 times like silver tried in a furnace, volcano. And here's the figures of these 280 tons or more statues, but Cook's job was to destroy this female figure. So now when you go there and you count them, there's 887. But the female figure beside the giant male figure, it is still evident when you look at it. And he took his cannons up there and tried to destroy it, blowing the facial features away and anything that looked like that could be recognised. But of course, it's built on the side of the lava on the mountain volcano, and this thing is cut out first. So this thing weighs about 120, 130 tons, and then deep troughs, and then there's another one beside it which is 280, some say up to 400 tons. My opinion is it's probably 400 tons, and that's El Gigante. And these are coming out, as I said, side by side. They're coming out of the side of the volcano as it's coming out of the furnace, which represents Judgment Day. So Easter Island represents Armageddon, when the Lord comes back, and there's a mad panic because all the people suddenly realise the Lord is back for judgment. So this is all to do with the synchronicity of it. And as I say, when we first went to Glastonbury, we climbed up onto St Michael's Tor.
Glastonbury
Tor, St Michael's
Tower.
And there was no shadows. So the light was shining from all directions when we walked up there. And we've got photographs of that, which we could upload any time if anyone wants to see it. But there was no shadows from any direction. So what we was observing was light rising up at 3 a.m. in one direction, and then light coming up in another direction. And we drove across Europe, and many times we would travel along behind big trucks and so forth, which should be casting shadows, and they didn't cast shadows around that time. So it's another phenomenon that is totally visible in the photographs, and but people had no idea what was happening. So, do you want to, with that, do you want to start on your...
I wanted to read about Richard Whiting.
Well, read about Richard Whiting.
At the end, because you remember how sick I felt on the climb.
Well, I climbed up into the this church on top, and I
The tower,
turned around, the
St.
tower.
Michael's Tower.
I turned around and I seen Ash coming up behind me, and I took photographs of her coming up, and she was feeling sick because of what happened in that tower.
But I didn't know that at the
She
time.
didn't know it. And what they did, when they draw and quarter someone, there was 3 priests, I think, involved, 1 abbot and 2 priests,
It was
and they
Richard
stretch you between horses and then chop you up. So it was a dreadful thing. This
Yep.
is Henry VIII done that. He was mad as a hatter, because he was, not only was he a bad bastard, but he was also a man who had syphilis, which causes insanity. He died of syphilis, I think.
Yes, so he was the last abbot of Glastonbury. This was all at the time of the dissolution of the monastery, so it wasn't only Glastonbury. Glastonbury was the last one standing. But Henry VIII demanded all of the monasteries be dissolved, and it was because of Richard Whiting's allegiance to Rome, as King William the Lion of Scotland had a special relationship to Rome, and you can read about that when it's actually over at Arbroath Monastery. But anyway, the death. By January 1539, Glastonbury was the only monastery left in Somerset. Abbot Whiting, this is Richard Whiting, refused to surrender the abbey, which did not fall under the Act for the suppression of the lesser houses. On the 19th of September of that year, the Royal Commissioners Leighton, Richard Pollard and Thomas Moyle arrived there without warning on the orders of Thomas Cromwell. So this is Cromwell before Oliver Cromwell, who was the traitor to England and let the Jews back in. Presumably to find faults and thus facilitate the abbey's closure, Whiting, by now feeble and advanced in years, was sent to the Tower of London so that Cromwell might examine him himself. The precise charge on which he was arrested and subsequently executed, this is later, remains uncertain, though his case is usually referred to as one of treason. Cromwell clearly acted as judge and jury. In his manuscript remembrances are the entries. Item: certain persons to be sent to the Tower for the further examination of the Abbot of Glaston. Item: the Abbot of Glaston to be tried at Glaston and also executed there with his accomplices. Item: councillors to give evidence against the Abbot of Glaston: Rich Pollard, Lewis Forstew, Thomas Moyle. Now, Marillac, the French ambassador, on October the 25th wrote, "The Abbot of Glastonbury has lately been in the Tower because in taking the abbey treasures," this is what they charged him with, in fact he was safeguarding them, and one of them apparently was the manuscript, and we read this up there on the tour, it was the manuscript for the Colburn that I'm about to read to you from. In taking the abbey treasures valued at 200,000 crowns, they found a written book of arguments in behalf of Queen Catherine. As a member of the House of Lords, Whiting should have been attainted, condemned by an Act of Parliament passed for that purpose, but his execution was an accomplished fact before Parliament met. Whiting was sent back to Glastonbury with Pollard and reached Wells on the 14th of November. There some sort of trial apparently took place, and he was convicted of robbing Glastonbury Church. The next day, Saturday the 15th of November, he was taken to Glastonbury with 2 of his monks, John Thorne and Roger James, where all 3 were fastened upon hurdles and dragged by horses to the top of Glastonbury Tor. So I'm feeling sick as we are climbing up the Tor to where St. Michael's Tower is, and I had no idea that this had taken place, which overlooks the town. Here they were hanged, drawn and quartered, with Whiting's head, I feel sick now just even thinking about it.
It's a dreadful thing.
With Whiting's head being fastened over the west gate of the now deserted abbey, and his limbs exposed at Wells, Bath, Leicester and Bridgewater. Oh, God.
While I was up there and the lack of light, shadows, I noticed with the GPS that I had, which gives you the longitude, latitude, north, south, east and west, and our handheld compass, that they had placed in 1983 a sundial of sorts with north, south, east and west on it. Now, always the churches built the opening facing east, always. However, up there, in the time from it was built in the 12th century till 1983.
It was 82 actually.
82, was it? Until 1982, you could see that the earth had twisted off its original north, south, east and west. And that's one of the things that I was very interested in after getting over the shock of all this. We did some very interesting photography there, seeing the sun appear to go down and then the light would come up again. So that was interesting as well. There was two light sources, in other words. I've also made videos where because of the shape of the church itself, there was just the tower remaining, and you could look through the arch to the other side. It was only about 5 or 6 metres square, very high building, all stone, and there were photographs taken showing two suns crossing that particular area with the cameraman back where the sundial was situated, which, as I said, is now out of place. So he inadvertently, this man who took it, it's on the internet actually, he inadvertently took a photograph showing two suns. So this is the Nibiru thing. Now, just last 2 nights ago, I can see at night very, very clearly, better than normal people, in the sense that as you get older you get a bit of long vision. And I was looking at these two brilliant stars that are flashing different colours. One is predominantly redder than the other, and we have uploaded it and you can see. But now, with the naked eye, I could notice that there is a companion beside it. So you've got this flashing, glowing star, and then this little white light beside it. Both of them. One is at about that level, and the other one was slightly lower. So say one is at 7 o'clock and one is at 7:30. And something is happening in space which, when we get clear skies and we now have the camera and the equipment, should be able to track it. But carry on, my dear. I'm just going to go.
Okay, reading from the Cauldron, the real man. Man is divided not only into nations, peoples, tribes and creeds, but also broadly in twain. There are among all men, all peoples, two kinds of man, the real man and the weakling. Those who are neither wholly one nor wholly the other, nevertheless tend towards the nature of one or the other of these. Consider the real man, the man who reaches out towards God-likeness. He is the man in whom God has succeeded. He is God's elect. He is like unto a spreading tree planted in black soil, which blossoms quietly and doubles the yield of its fruit in the summer. Its fruit is delight to the mouth and fills the stomach with satisfaction. Beneath the canopy of its foliage, the weary find a pleasant refuge from the heat. In its shade, all men find peace and contentment. The weakling is like a tree whose leaves wither before the heat of the summer sun, whose fruit never reaches maturity, for it falls to the ground unripened and is trampled underfoot. Men avoid it, and the axe is laid against its bone. O real man, filled with the calm of strength, you are the true image of God on earth. Yours is the noble life, and your reward here shall be a body preserved in youthfulness. when in the fullness of time you make the journey westward, then shall your soul arise in the mysterious beyond, radiant in a glory indescribable.
Reincarnation.
Behold the uprightness of the real man. Is he not the father of the orphan and the husband of the widow, the brother of the forsaken and the guardian of the fatherless? Do not the friendless find in him a friend, and the poor a benefactor? It is not hard to give to the needy within reach, or to help the weak when they are at hand. But the real man works not in such narrow confines, for he stretches out his hand to those beyond. Watch him among the distressed. He talks with compassion and listens with understanding. See him among the lowly, how he deals with them in patience and kindness. Such men stand out among others, not only because of their own qualities, but because of the respect which others feel bound to accord them. A great man is no less great though he lie prostrated and vanquished in the dust. The real man accepts both victory and defeat for what they really are, a challenge to his manliness. The real man stands apart in greatness because of his outstanding qualities, his love of truth and justice, and his hatred of meanness and deceit. Though great men make great events, even as great events call forth great men, they are not always the children of fortune. Success and acclaim do not always attend their undertakings, but whether they rise or fall is of lesser importance than how they rise and fall. It is not what a man does that makes him great, but what he strives to achieve. The greatest men have no memorial if their endeavours were unpopular or not crowned with success. For every great man with a memorial there is 1,000 unknown and unhonoured. The real man remains unperturbed by the whims of life. He does not flinch before misfortune, or ease his head when fortune smiles upon him. When misfortune descends upon his head and his hopes and dreams are shattered, he does not go about lamenting in a loud voice, but quietly continues his daily task. If fortune is gracious towards him, he braces himself and is not overwhelmed, for he knows that often it takes a better man to bear the bounty of fortune than to bear the burden of misfortune. The spirit of the real man does not bow before the blows of misfortune, no matter how grievous its afflictions. His calmness deflects its arrows, and his fortitude breaks its thrust. The shield of cheerfulness and the sword of courage he never discards in despair. His contentment is not dependent upon the whims of capricious fortune, and he therefore is not cast down by her indifference. Like the metal measure, he is unchanging under all stresses. But the weakling, like the balances of the scales, is always moving up and down. The real man stands before adversity as a rock before the raging seas, firm in the midst of turmoil, solid and calm against the fury. His mind forms great designs, and his spirit delights in their execution. His ideas grow up. They are never stillborn, nor do they wither before maturity. The examples of great men shine before him as visions in the night, and their precedents walk with him by day. His high-hearted love of life exalts the spirit within him. He strains at the traces and is impatient for the run. He rises above the rock of opposition and splits it in twain, as does the sapling. He is like a great oak which rises above the shrubbery in the darkness and shakes out its branches in the glory above. He has compassion on the blind man. He helps the lame man, and he guards the deformed and afflicted against the mockery of weaklings. He carries himself with the dignity becoming a man. He remains unshaken in calamity. Deceit and hypocrisy are things far beneath him. He has an air of quiet confidence and courage to speak the truth. The thoughts of his heart are the words of his mouth, and whatever he promises is as good as done. The real man is he who serves the purpose of God and carries out his plan. Because of him all men rejoice for what they are, and the weakling he carries as his burden. The crown of glorious manliness is on his head. The mantle of courage is about his shoulders. He stands out from others in the pride and glory of his manhood. He treasures womanhood and the dreams of men. He is the master of earth and the Lord of creation. Nothing more is required of man on earth than he be a real man. There is a sufficient objective and difficult enough. This is a sufficient objective and difficult enough for any man to achieve. Manhood is a state of freedom, but its stronghold is in the spirit of a man. The body may be held forcibly in bondage, but the spirit cannot be shackled. He who lies imprisoned in the lowest dungeon may be more free than he who walks above, with a servile spirit holding him in thraldom. Servility is the brand of the weakling. Never judge a man according to his estate or circumstances, but accept him as a man according to his state of manliness. He that is manly, hold as a man, even though he be your enemy, but he who is less than a man, hold accordingly, though he be with you. For were your enemy a lesser man, he might proffer a hypocritical friendship and thus destroy you by treachery. It is well never to forget that some friends might be enemies. Were they better men? Therefore, the measure of a friend, manliness, may also be the gauge of his sincerity. A real man does not debase or humiliate the manliness of a defeated foe, for in so doing he reveals his own baseness. It is well to remember that he who fights against you does so in the light of his one truth, and truth is not the pawn of battles. A real man is hardy, tenacious, and brave. He is gentle with women and hearty with men. He disciplines himself according to the manly code. He is generous and hospitable. He is alert and audacious. Comfort, intemperance, and overindulgence makes weaklings. Struggle, adversity, and self-control make real men. A real man is a real man, and no power outside himself can take away his manliness. He is upright and strong, with a full measure of respect for himself. He is a man of deeds and not an idler. In manner he is quiet and discreet. He is prudent in all things. And with all these qualities go generosity, good nature, and reserve. Be not a loud-mouthed bag of wind, for quietness within a man is as a rock against which the tempest-driven waves of wrath and rage, rashness and haste dash in vain. It is far easier to be a weakling than to be a real man. Were the earth less harsh, or the circumstances of life less austere, man would destroy himself before the shrine of the languid goddess. Only real man can with safety destroy the tangled forests and wilderness of earth and make from them gardens. But will those who inherit the gardens be real men? The law decrees that they must be, or the wilderness will reclaim its own. He who would live in a garden must labour in the sun and subdue the soil. He who is content to live in the wilderness may sleep in the shade, but he is a slave of life. The real man stands out above all others. His head is high, his footfall firm, his bearing is dignified, his face calm, his hand steady, his heart tranquil. He sweeps aside all obstacles in his way. He proceeds through all the dream fiends and powers of darkness seek to bar his way. I'll read that again. He sweeps aside all obstacles in his way. He proceeds, though all the dream fiends and powers of darkness seek to bar his way. Where is he who can gather the real men together and make them rulers of all men, that earth may resound with glory and greatness? The end. That's the real man. This is the description of the real man. And then, let me see, what time is it? Oh, we do have time. It's only 36 minutes, so we've got another 24 to go. Shall I read the weekly in comparison?
What about the woman?
Oh, okay. The real woman. Okay, here we go. Women. There are two categories of womankind: wives or potential wives, and women of pleasure. The first of these are the intended mates of men, their companions and comforters, the mothers of their children and the goddesses of their hearths. The others become their companions in carnal pleasure. They dally with them, then cast them aside, and they pass on to the embrace of other uncaring men. Each woman decides which category she will join, and that is her chosen path. Never confuse the two kinds of women, lest you eat out your heart in sorrow and regret. It is decreed by the nature of things that womankind should fall into two groups, and each woman is to be dealt with according to the category in which she has placed herself. What kind of woman can be without a household? Only one who is cast out or has run away because of her misdeeds. Avoid the singing woman whose ways are frivolous. She is beautiful, but her beauty is like the honey in the honey pot. It attracts many flies, and they pollute it. Guard yourself against the wiles of a woman from a strange country, whose city and household are not known. Who are her people? What are her ways? From what has she flown? From her mother's solicitude and her father's supervision? As she leaves them to sorrow, so will she depart from you. Or does she flee from her own reputation? When the feelings of a wanton woman are deadened, as the edge of an axe is deadened by constant use, she ceases to please. She becomes as the wassailing cup passed around many times. Then she flees from the place where she is known and lays her trap among strangers. And he who asks no questions takes her into his household and drains the polluted dregs that remain. Avoid the flattering woman who would beguile you with words. Shun her who repudiates woman's covenant with the creating God, who casts her treasures of womanhood lightly before men, Her hand guides along the path of sorrow. Her embrace leads to the soul's desolation. She shatters the dreams of man. She is a traitor to womankind, the betrayer of womanhood. By the unclean embrace of the wanton woman, a man may be brought down to destruction. The adulteress lies in wait to suck the happiness of a family. A failure in her own home, she seeks gratification in the ruination of another. Adulterate the household of no man by lying with a woman thereof. Men do not despise a thief if he steals because he is hungry, but all men despise the adulterer who takes what is not his to vent his own lust. If you commit adultery, then prepare to flee, for men will arise against you. For if they revile not the adulterer, nor raise their arms against him, then it is a time of the nation's degradation, and all men must look to their own wives. If men fail to punish the adulterer, then they encourage the seduction of their own women. In the land of weaklings the adulterer hunts freely, for who will oppose him? Is it not written? That which is not punished is condoned. As we think of the nations today,
Absolutely.
the Western nations,
Totally devoured by Talmudic Judaism.
he who accepts meekly the seduction of a woman of his household is a weakling and coward and unworthy of the mantle of manhood. He who turns his face and sees not the seduction of another's wife encourages the adulterers and establishes their place among the people. All men who are men are jealous of the sanctity of their hearth and home, and the righteous wrath of a wronged husband shall overwhelm the guilty ones. His is the day of vengeance, and no gifts shall appease him. The man who declines to strike a blow in defence of his home and honour is a weakling and coward. Men turn from him in disgust, or he sickens their stomachs, while women despise him. He who suffers in defending the sanctity of womanhood suffers in the cause of God, who made woman the guardian of the portal of life. In the land of real men she reigns as goddess of heart, hearth, and home. When a woman whose husband is absent displays her beauty and encourages your visit, then she arranges that there be no witnesses and prepares her net for you. Then is the hour of your manhood's trial. Depart from her house, for it is a place of evil. He who defiles the home of another cannot be justly wrathful if his own is defiled. It is not the way of a real man to defile the house of another in his absence. Only weaklings sneak around furtively to gratify their body lust in another's domain. If you are unfortunate and unwise enough to love the wife of another man, then degrade not that love by expressing it in dark corners like a cur. Go to the husband like a man, and let events happen as they will. If you wish to be welcomed in the household to which you are in the habit of going, always treat the womenfolk with reserve. Thus you will not be regarded with disfavour and will be trusted by your host. If he has daughters, he will say in his heart, "Such a man can be trusted with my daughter's welfare, for he is circumspect and a man of honour." A man who is not prudent casts an appraising eye over the womenfolk, and his host is insulted, for no woman of his household is indecent. Be not bedazzled by beauty alone, A beautiful tree with gay flowers rarely bears an abundant harvest. As a fire is beautiful and useful when restrained within the fireplace, but a thing of destruction when loose, so is the beauty of a woman when not kept in restraint by virtue. The beauty of a chaste woman inspires a man to greatness and to high accomplishments, that he may possess it, but the beauty of a harlot leads him along the paths of dissipation and improvidence. Men will strive and attain great things to satisfy their desire, but will cease their efforts if it be cast at their feet. The beauty of womanhood was ordained to inspire man, and of all things it is his greatest incentive to achievement. Therefore, a woman's secrets are not to be lightly attained. The evil of the harlot is that she counters the inspiration of womanhood. Her wickedness is her cheapness. The pleasures of a harlot are of the body and exist only for the moment, to pass into nothingness like a dream. What have you given? For it is the loss of men. The vigour of manhood that bears man along the path of great things may also be a weapon in the hands of evil, but the weapon remains sheathed until placed in the hands of a wanton woman. The harlot sets her trap, the toils of the net are soft and supple, the weakling is caught easily, and even better men are caught by deceit. The soul of a man is bruised, and the power of womanhood is weakened. The bait of a wanton woman may be seen from afar. It is attractive and alluring. The hook is well hidden. Her glance is bold. She seeks the attention of men and spreads out her temptations. Her allurements are well displayed, for has she not had much experience? Her limbs are soft and shapely, her attire loose and inviting. Her eyes can speak silently of furtive pleasures. Her bosom invites the caress of lust, her smile softens the heart, and her tongue kindles the fire of desire. The smoothness of her tongue overcomes reserve, and her soft manner closes the eyes of wisdom. She is familiar with the ways and weaknesses of men and is well practiced in the gratification of their bodies. She anticipates success, for her victims are not few. She satisfies the lustful desires of the body, but how does she serve the spirit? What does she do with man's highest dreams of womanhood? Fly from her allurements and close your ears to her words of false endearments. They are well worn from practice on many. If you give heed to her languishing glances, or listen to the soft words that fall from her lips, if you yield yourself to the warm embrace of her arms, then you sacrifice your manhood at the altar of lust. If she binds you as with a spell, when your eyes become open, you will know the meaning of shame. Poverty and slothfulness follow in the train of the wanton. Misery and remorse will be your lot. Your manliness will be sapped by dissipation. Your body, pampered by luxury and softened by sloth, will become enfeebled. Your limbs will weaken and your health depart. The glow of strength and the joy of living will be gone. There will be no tender arms to hold you with compassion, or eyes to regard you tenderly, none to listen to your griefs with understanding, for you have chosen the path of the fornicator. Gentle women will withdraw from your presence, and naught is to be wrung from the heart of a wanton, for only her body is soft. Therefore be wise in your dealings with women, and to be wise is to be prudent and strong. Reject that which is cast before you, for it will be shared with many men. Seek only that which is desirable in its near attainability, for it will be yours alone. Be wise and avoid the sweet enticements of the wanton and the lustful inducements of the harlot, and allow not your heart to be trapped by enchanting mirages of love. The woman who is cheap will receive many offers of silver, but none of gold. Man has many chisels wherewith to fashion the form of his immortal soul, and among them none is so sharp as the hard chisel of desire. Therefore beware, lest in the fullness of youth you fall prey to the allurements of the wanton woman, who will cause you to degrade your manhood and cut shameful strokes by the excesses she offers for your delight. She will entice you with a false sweetness which disguises the bitter soul corroding draught. Her charms are delusions which will blind your eyes and benumb your feelings. Drink at the tainted well if you must, but never after shall you be free of its taint, and never after shall you enjoy the pure waters of love in their refreshing fullness. How drab the wanton beside the chaste woman, who stands bedecked in radiant virtue and dignified modesty, whose glory puts the brilliance of the starlit night skies in the shade. Her influence for good is among the greatest earthly powers. She moulds the destinies of men in purity and wholesomeness, and in her hands the hammer strikes the chisel to fashion a form of glory. The chaste woman is soft and gentle, modest and kind. Her glance quickens the beat of all but the hardest heart, and her touch quietens the raging storms in the most troubled. Her eyes shine with womanly innocence, and she is garbed in simplicity and truth. Her exclusive kisses are sweet as the fresh-plucked dew-cooled grape, and the breath from her lips is as a warmly soft perfumed breeze. Close the doors of your spirit against the destructive assaults of deforming passions, and open your heart to the tenderness of love. Its pure, gentle flame shall inspire the soul to sublime heights of glory and softly mould it into a magnificent form of perfection.
Beautiful.
Now the next section is on choosing a wife. Now, in reading this, faced with today, the state of the nations today, the protocols of Zion is all about the demoralizing of all who are not them. The Goy, that is us, the European nations, the USA, Australia, the demoralization. This is the removing from society real men and real women. And we reiterate that Adolf Hitler, a real man, recognized the threat to all humanity. His concern was only for Germany, to bring Germany back underneath the umbrella of himself as a real man and a father over the German people who had been so thoroughly demoralized. The conditions within Berlin, I was saying that Marlene Dietrich, is she transvestite? What is it?
Oh, swung both ways.
Okay, she had to flee Berlin after Adolf Hitler took power. Good.
He cleaned out all of the pornography and the brothels and terrible clubs. Anyone who's seen the movie Cabaret should have some idea what was going on.
His primary focus was the children of Germany.
Yeah, his primary focus, as Joel is saying, is the children of Germany. And that's what mine is.
To
suffer the little children not to come unto me. That's what I said, that's what I mean, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That's what the Batman's all about.
Protecting the children.
Break their legs.
And their future. Can you imagine? There is no hope for the future until we go back to the precepts taught here by the ancients, who paid with their own blood for the generations down to now. They paved the way, the blood of the saints, those that lived their lives as the real men and real women, and left behind teachings like these. It's a shame. I think about the revelation of the Essene, which is quite a bit different to the revelation within the book that everybody's reading. But constantly, as man was shown the future, the angel over each area of nature, if you like, showing the destruction that would come because of the choices, not of real men and real women. We're talking about weaklings being in power, being empowered. This is what the demonic are. They are able to possess the weakling. And then the power of the demonic raises them into positions of power over all humankind. This is where we are today. This is why, as Hitler himself, the last real man until the rebirth of the only real man in history, to teach you all things.
That's what a comforter's job is. The number in the concordance is 3875. That's how many miles it is from where I was born to the south pole.
So, the next show we'll read Choosing a Wife.
Okay.